Hi everyone, Michael from Bullion Now, bullionnow.com.au. So I'm going to take you back to the start of the year when Ruben and I were in Berlin for the World Money Fair, and we managed to snag an interview with a gentleman named Michael Schuller, who's a trader with a company called A-Mark. Now, A-Mark is probably one of the preeminent bullion dealers in the world, actually. So they cover everything from the refining process through to wholesale, through to manufacture, through to retail. They've got interests right across the board. So it was a fascinating interview with someone who's very much at the coalface, but very much getting a lot of the information around how it is in Europe and how it is in the States and how it's affecting every day and some of the bigger picture stuff that affects them as bullion traders. So stay tuned right through to the end. You'll find it absolutely fascinating. Hi everyone, Michael from Bullion Now, bullionnow.com.au. So we are sitting in the lovely Berlin city. We're obviously here for the World Money Fair, and we've been lucky enough to grab this ruggedly handsome gentleman next to me who's going to introduce himself. So tell us who you are.
My name is Michael Schuller, and I'm working for A-Mark since more than 10 years. And before I joined A-Mark, I had no idea about the precious metals industry. So I was working in equity and options.
Okay.
And this was my world before. And
Yep.
I met a guy in the gym who was telling me about physical precious metals.
Yep.
And by the time, I was not a big fan of it, to be honest. And the more he told me, the more the interest rose. And then after a while, he approached me and said, he's looking for a trader, if I can help him to find someone. So I was listening to him, which company he joined, and he joined A-Mark by the time as the managing director,
Yep.
just to build up the European side of A-Mark. And so I met with the US traders, and it sounded very interesting. And a few weeks later, I signed the contract.
You know, we're sitting here in Germany itself, and I know Germany traditionally has a very vibrant or very deep bullion market. There's always been that belief in metals for many generations that we don't have in Australia. We don't have that background.
Germany always was the biggest silver market in Europe. So this hurts.
Silver and gold, or just silver?
Just silver.
Yeah, okay.
Gold was always a part of it because Germany is a rich country. But because of the margin taxation, which changed last year, it was always the preferred metal which customers in Germany took.
I actually assumed that Germany was the largest gold market as well. Were you saying is there a larger gold market in Europe?
I think every rich country, Netherlands, you have Austria. With the Austrian Mint, they are pushing the topic very much. And also because I'm from Austria, so there's more insight in it, the Austrian government is also pushing it.
So the government's actually pushing investment into precious metals?
Right. And
Wow.
also keeping physical money.
Physical is in cash?
In cash. So
The Australian viewers are going to love this one.
I don't know if it's just a kind of a marketing gag or something where they say we need to push this topic because customers are in fear to win the next election, or if they really think this is something we shouldn't get rid of.
So in Australia, we're having the opposite issue where the government is pushing us away from storing cash or precious metals or anything along those sort of lines. So it's interesting to hear. And funnily enough, this isn't the first time I've heard other governments around the world actually starting to push their citizens towards, actual physical storage of precious metals and cash and things like that.
Yeah.
So, does your central bank in Austria, does it hold or encourage the purchasing of gold?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, okay. So we don't have that either, really, in our country. So
there is a big tradition, and I think it has to do something how Austria changed since the Second World War, just to keep the independency.
Yeah.
There's a big connection, not only on the language side, but also when the German economy is doing good, the Austrian economy is doing good. So there's still a connection in it, but
That's pretty much a European thing, though, isn't it? Like if France and Germany are doing well, pretty much everyone else is okay.
Yes, that's true. That's very important for the European Union, but there are different speeds of economies in Europe.
Yeah.
So before COVID hit, we always had two different speeds because you had the northern part of Europe and the southern part of Europe. With Greece, it was the best example how you're not to run a business, and if something goes wrong, how to deal with it from the European side, because it was the completely wrong way.
Yeah. You mentioned before about the, I've forgotten the name of it, but the tax that came in, I think it was last year, wasn't it?
The margin taxation.
Yeah. Explain that to me.
I'm not a tax expert, to be honest with you. So
This is not investment or taxation advice. We'll get that one out of the way right from the start.
I just can tell you what I heard from my customers. So what there was on silver coins, you didn't have to pay the, I think, 20% VAT on the whole coin.
Yeah.
There was only the margin taxation, which was 6 to 7% on the difference between the buy and the sell price.
Yeah.
So that was the margin taxation. So the coin itself was much cheaper than, for example, in Austria, where you had the full taxation on the whole coin.
So that was a specific German thing?
That was a specific German thing.
Because I know it caused ripples through. I wasn't actually at the last year's function here, but I know, talking to Mark and Ruben and the likes, there was real ripples through the industry when that actually came in, and a lot of concern about how it would impact demand of silver coins and things like that. Once that came in, did you notice a real drop off in demand for the coins? Yeah,
what I heard from my customers is that the retail customer is not interested in more in silver. He still believes in silver, but because it's now higher taxed, and the tax itself in Germany and especially in Europe is already very high, so they don't understand, and they don't see the reason why they have to pay more tax to the government even on their investment products.
Does that count if you and I are private citizens and you sell me silver, part of your silver collection, is that taxed in any form?
If it comes from the secondary market, you mean as a private individual?
As private citizens, like, do we have to?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to the question.
Yeah, okay.
But what I know is that there is still a margin taxation on the secondary market coins.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if it goes through a bullion dealer or something like that, we're still, full on.
Yeah.
No, it's probably the same in Australia, I suppose. Most of our bullion products don't incur what we call GST, what you call VAT. But yeah, there are some that absolutely do, and they would fall over. Again, under the secondary market, we'd cop that as well. What's the overall market like in the whole? We've talked about Germany and Austria a little bit. What about the whole market in Europe? What's the market like generally?
2023 was tricky for everybody because for the reason I mentioned before, so the costs of living are much higher, or were much higher. Then nobody knew what will happen with the Russia and Ukraine war.
Yeah. This is a dumb question from an Australian. Did that have much impact on the market here? You're a heck of a lot closer than we are. So we were hearing rumours of energy prices going through the roof because of Germany was very reliant on Russian gas and those types of things. Did that ever eventuate? Did it ever really impact the market much?
It did, especially on the gold side.
Yeah, okay.
So customers were buying smaller increments of gold, like the combi bar.
Yes.
So even when the premium is higher than on a kind of a normal bar, people wanted to be prepared if something happens, that they have something small to exchange.
Yeah.
So this had a big impact for a few months.
Yeah, okay.
I think customers are now more prepared for the future. If something happens, that they have physical precious metals or something in their pockets to exchange.
Yeah, okay. Did you see much impact from the collapse of the banks in the States? So the Silicon Valley, did that impact much over here?
To be honest with you, I was surprised how little impact it had in Europe. Because when something happens like this, I feel the same as I felt 2008, as the as the banking crisis hit.
Yeah.
And my wife is not from the financial industry, but when I come home, I tell her what happened, and I was scared is the wrong word, but it was concerned how this will influence the European banks. But there was nothing. There was nothing happening, and I think many of the customers here in the physical precious metal industry have no knowledge about what this meant, because there are still banks out there which were, when you look at the bond side, and this was clearly about the bond side, so it was a mark-to-market thing, or it was a mark-to-maturity thing.
Yeah.
So they had it on the book mark-to-maturity, which is 100%, but the market was at 80%.
Yeah.
So the capitalization from the bank was in high risk. So they had to sell the bonds at 80% and not at 100%, which they had in the books. So this caused the trouble. And still a lot of banks are in the same situation.
Yeah.
The only thing is they don't have to realize it into the real world.
Yeah, I kind of, I think I was actually similar boat to you. I expected far more impact from it, because it's actually pretty scary if that domino does fall. That first domino really gets going,
Yeah.
and the market, like the banks are forced to liquidate now. Their valuations are up here,
Yeah.
and their realistic pricing is down here. We have a similar problem in Australia with our superannuation funds. I actually don't know what you call the equivalent over here, but our retirement funds,
Okay.
where in commercial property, they're very heavily invested in commercial property in Australia, and on the books their valuation is up here, but you've got the same thing over here, I'd assume, where after COVID a lot of people didn't go back to the office and that type of stuff. So the actual realisable value of those investments is 70 to 80%. So if there's ever, it wouldn't take much of a run on our super funds, individual super funds, before they had to start actually liquidating these buildings. And then if you liquidate these buildings at 70 to 80%, now I've got a real mark to market. Now all of a sudden I've got to bring the rest of my valuations down, and you get this catch-22 scenario.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised we haven't seen it, or the fear of it, much stronger in Australia, and it sounds like in Europe as well.
But I think I fully agree with you, and but my concern is not gone. It's even much higher now, because as you see what happens in China now, and Evergrande is a big topic since the last couple of months.
Yeah.
But since now it's a fact that they are bankrupt, and I'm pretty sure it's not a Chinese thing itself. I'm sure a lot of Western companies invested in this huge company. So my expectation is that there's something coming over, and this could be the other part or the other thing. Maybe the U.S. banks were not as big as we expected that the impact will be, but now this impact could be much bigger.
Yeah.
And then it can be the circle down.
And that's before we start talking. And the other one that I've been very surprised had very little impact was the trouble in the Middle East now. So Israel and Hamas, and again, I'm not trying to make political statements here, but that whole shipping area through there, and the fact that the Americans have now been attacked, and the Americans and the English or the British are starting to get involved in actually sending troops there and missiles there and that sort of stuff. I've been surprised both in the precious metals market and the oil market particularly that it's flatlining. Like there's been no. 20% of the world's oil goes through that stretch. If that shuts down, now what?
Rumor says, and I'm not a conspiracy theory guy.
Yeah, I got it.
That especially commodity markets are suppressed, modified, manipulated, whatever. So in my point of view, this could be the same, because politics and I think world economy understood now in the meantime that the retail customers know when gold is high, there is something wrong. And there are so many things wrong worldwide, and also on the political side. So I think This is maybe the reason why we are still at the 2030 average price, and it doesn't move much.
Yeah.
So there will be, and that's my view on the topic for the future. There will be an impact, and that gold will be much higher. I'm not a fan of predicting a price, but I'm sure volatility will hit the market, and as soon as volatility comes in, customers are starting to buy because they feel there is something going on.
Yeah, it really is that. If we hit the tipping point, I think it's going to be a fairly large flow-on effect.
Yeah,
and it actually worries me a little bit, if I'm completely honest.
You know, I'm a big fan of the black swan theory, and I'm sure there will be a point where we expect something, but we don't know when.
Yeah. So what is your call for the future in the precious metals market? I'm not going to pin you to a number, but you know, if we're having this conversation, no, actually, I'll try and pin you to a number. We come back here in a year's time. Where would you anticipate gold, silver? Where would you anticipate the market to be?
Funny you're asking this. There's a tradition with a bank where we are on a yearly basis invited and do the same play, and every single trader was wrong. Yeah. The only lady which was right was from back office. So it seems she had more clue about where the market goes than all the traders combined. But I think we will be much higher than now. So 2,100 and above.
Yeah.
But with much more volatility.
Yeah.
This is what I expect.
Yeah.
And also I think that these metals, platinum, palladium, they are now way undervalued.
Yeah, that I'd agree with.
And I think these will come up on back where they were, to 1,100 or something like this.
Yeah. And for Australian viewers, we're talking US dollar values here, not Australian dollar values. So yeah. No, look, I'm afraid we agree a little bit too much. Thank you very, very much for your time.
You're welcome.
It's been great to get a view on the European market and what's happening over here, because we're on the other side of the world and we think we're pretty important. But when you start moving into areas like this and places like this and talking to people like you realise that the real movers and shakers are actually in the northern hemisphere rather than the southern. So thank you for that insight. It's very much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Okay, that's it for now. We will talk again very, very soon and bring you more from the World Money Fair here in Berlin. See ya.